G'day and welcome back for more Space Engineer Survival. I've managed to get the tank back home, even though it's mostly not intact. There's a very large chunk missing from the left-hand side here. Whole welder's gone. Just a holographic representation of what it used to be. And I'm not sure what I'm going to do with the tank just yet. In some ways, I quite like the fact that it's got all these battle scars and it shows that it's actually been through something pretty horrendous to even have taken this much damage. The catapult I'm even less sure of what I'm going to do with. But today is not about either of those. Today is about designing more of the base and kind of celebrating a bit of the fact that we've... Uh-oh. Shouldn't fly around without my HUD. Critical. Because my fuel is very, very low. Okay, that was lucky. Celebrating the fact that the release is here and the game is still working on a save that was started almost 2 years ago. In fact, I probably did make this map more than 2 years ago because I'd worked on the map for a little while before I even started the series. That's pretty cool and almost unheard of in early access games for a save to maintain that degree of integrity that it's actually worked through version after version. A few of my scripts had broken, and fortunately, the most important one, the inventory manager script, has already been updated, and I have updated it in the base as well. So all of my management stuff should be working, except for the things that I'd modified to make slightly different to the default, because I couldn't remember what they were, and so I've left everything at the default, which hopefully won't cause too many troubles. One of the nice things about being in the release version is I now have the survival kit. That means we can use it to decorate our medical bay. The other thing I'd like to do with the medical bay is to create some sort of scanner room. It was suggested in the comments and I really like the idea. The thing I'm not sure about though is whether any of my beds would suit such a scanner. I might be able to work this one into being a scanner bed, but I'm not confident. It may end up being either a seated scanner or a standing scanner because that will obviously kind of work best if I can't use a bed. It does seem strange though to have a medical scanner that's not a bed because you would normally, scan people lying down who are very sick. I suppose what I could do is have something that slides out over a bed and have the bed on the floor like one of these ones. But what I'd hoped to do was have something that would actually spin around a central bed inside the scanner with a bunch of lights and stuff like that to make it look a little bit like a sci-fi-esque scanner. Bit ridiculous, but a bit of fun. We'll see what we can do. That's going to be later in the episode. For now, what I would like to do is probably get some hydrogen, but also, actually I can do that because my medical bay is piped. I can get hydrogen just like this. Yes, good. Now, another suggestion I had, which I definitely agree with, is getting rid of this entryway to the mess hall. There's not much point in having doors into and out of the mess hall. It's nice to kind of separate it from the main corridor, but I suppose we don't really need them. I guess we could just have it open. And I think it could look good enough if I just remove those 6 blocks. The other really important thing is I'm going to totally rework this kitchen. I'm going to make it look like there is an actual kitchen staff running this place, so you'll be able to come up to a counter and get served and then go back to your table. Because having a fully fledged kitchen in an open space like this, when you've got this many staff, just doesn't really work logically. You would either have pre-made meals, which means I could just slap down a whole bunch of fridges, which would kind of do that idea, or you'd have a kitchen staff providing meals for the people here. So this is sort of an in-between kind of thing, would suit more for a house or a small facility like over in the silo, but for a large facility like this, it doesn't quite work. So that's going to be changed too. Now, what I think I might first do is get rid of these doors and see what this looks like opened up. I'll almost certainly have to redo the tables because they really weren't laid out with such an entryway in mind. This is my nearest access point, I think. Fortunately, through the medbay, I can't double click on stuff, which is kind of a hassle. I'll just hope that the inventory manager sorts this out because I don't want to have to find the stacks. All right, so that's with all those blocks removed, and yeah, I think if we set up a kitchen with a counter, this space will feel a lot more sensible. Have the chairs mostly over this side, keep this open area with the pool table and things, and then have a kitchen on this side with a couple more chairs just down here. I am almost certainly going to build most of the counter out of small grid blocks because, as we went through before, I don't have a counter that would work as part of this kit because I really don't like the sinks being part of a service counter. It just doesn't feel right. The other thing I think I will do, just for my own practicality, is pipe up a small cargo container to the back of the kitchen so that they've got access to the conveyor system. And that means I'll be able to build more easily and not have to go through dealing with getting stuff out of the med bay. Something important to note is that if you're loading up an old save, make sure you alter the inventory settings to match what you already had. I did accidentally load this up with ×1, so realistic ship inventories or grid inventories, and that's a kind of a bit of a problem because I've got a lot of stuff stored in some containers that probably got deleted if I'd gone ahead with that save. So because I've been running on ×3, I needed to upgrade that for this loading into the current version. Alright, I think we've got enough room to punch back just a couple more blocks so that the kitchen can be a little bit inset on this wall. I was thinking of grinding these...
Inventory full.
Oh, I do better with my inventory, management. Definitely need to get that cargo container into the back of the kitchen. So remove these ones here. And punch back just a little bit so that we can put the rotor and the conversions that we want in here. I'm going to be using the modded blocks for the kitchen here, but if you want to take a look at a really, truly incredible kitchen design that you can do with vanilla blocks, have a look at Black Armor's treehouse. That thing is seriously cool. The way that they've gotten detail into the kitchen and all of the other bits on that thing is seriously amazing. It is one of the... honestly, it's one of my favorite builds I've seen in a long time because it is just so much fun. There's nothing serious about it, which makes it exactly my kind of build. Okay, so this is sort of the space I was thinking of for the kitchen. We'll have the cooking apparatus and the sinks and things in here. And then I thought it might be a nice thing to have an extra little room off the side here as our refrigerator. I don't know exactly how I'd manage to make it look properly like a cool room, but I think if we just have the fridges in here and maybe a shelf or two, that will look pretty right. Or at least give the right impression. I could probably put a vent in the ceiling to make it feel like it's got its own chiller in here. That would work. Alright, I'm going to weld this up and then we'll start doing a bit more detail in this fridge. Then we'll move out to the kitchen. And I think I'm going to place the rotor in the ceiling to create the frontage to this little kitchen area. I feel like that's going to be the best space to put it. I could even... Oh, yes. I have an idea. It's going to use rotors, and hopefully I can make it work. We'll get to that shortly. Alright, so this is the kind of idea I was thinking of. We've got the 4 fridges either side. We've got a couple of vents up in the ceiling. But if I turn off my headlights, I also gave it a bit of a blue tinge to make it feel a bit colder in here. The other thing I did while I was up there fixing up these pipes to make those vents actually turn on is I fiddled with our bathroom over here. So I've given it a bit of a ceiling. Not sure that I need this vent in here. I'm kind of tempted to get rid of it and just leave the roof and then be able to put some lights up in the ceiling there properly. But I wanted to show these stalls. What I did was I popped a vent right above, a whole block above, so that I could put the light above the toilet. Because I didn't really want this to be like the lights in the silo, or well, like the toilets in the silo where it is pitch dark in there. There we go. If I turn off my headlights, I've got an actually well-lit bathroom. Except no lights out here yet. Gotta fix that. Baby steps, baby steps. We are getting closer. Probably don't need it quite so intense. I know it's going to be a lot harder for you guys to see the build vision text because it's gotten a lot smaller. Now, it's time for our kitchen proper. We've got our cold room. And I'm almost beginning to think we need an extra block, but I don't know that we've got the space. So I think 1, 2, 3. Oh, yeah, maybe we do. Forgot about the bit of diagonal. I was thinking we didn't quite have enough rock there and I'd end up breaking through where I didn't want to. I think I want to have the kitchen blocks actually on this row here. So there's a bit of walking space down the middle, even though there would be some advantages to having the kitchen feel very tight and galley-like. Just remembered one thing that I had intended to do, but have forgotten, which was connect the conveyor system up here. So I've got a small conveyor, so I've got a small cargo container that I can actually access through. That is so much better. Nice to have a proper access point around here. Now, also, let's, that? Yes. Make everything colored right. And now, what I want to do here is probably have the usual kind of coming across. And I'm actually not going to do anything right up against the wall. I think that'll draw attention to the fact that there's a small gap there. So I'm going to leave it clear and then I'll put some supports down the middle somewhere. Or maybe even just a single support. Possibly don't need this so high or clear at such a great height. Maybe if I bring this down to there, it'll look a bit more natural or a bit more normal. Then if we do this, bring 2 blocks out there, add a rotor onto it, then we should be able to attach some LCDs to the rotor and have a nice little display that kind of leans down or is angled downward. I'm going to need to get a whole bunch of new LCD images made for the base so that it has everything I need for this kitchen, the stuff I want to put in the medical bay, all that sort of stuff. But I may just wait to do that all sort of in one go rather than trying to do them in separate pieces and maybe make a big list so I've got a full work schedule of what I need to do to get everything finished. Let's see if I can place the half slabs under here. So I kind of want to be able to. Oh, it looks like it might be closer to the ground than the edges normally are. Huh. I cannot place it. Maybe a better way of hiding this would be to have slopes down there. If I go with something like this, it might actually, strangely enough, hide it and give that visual appearance that this goes all the way to the floor, even though I've actually got the exact same gap. Because there's a slope heading down there, your brain just kind of connects the two anyway. Plus, it's a nice little detail. This looks to be about the right height for the counter, just 2 blocks up. And I should probably have that as a full block as well. What I really want to do is have a flip up doorway through here. And I think the only way I might be able to do it... Oh, how am I going to make that work? While I was editing the segment where I was building this little doorway, I came up with a far, far better way of doing it. I'd spent probably about 45 minutes faffing around trying to figure out a way to build this thing in a semi-attractive manner where I didn't have funny edges on it and angles and such. And it finally came to me while I was editing. So this bit is recorded well after the rest of everything in this episode. But I really wanted to just cut out all of the mucking around because it wasn't all that entertaining to watch because I was just really struggling, and show you a much better way of doing things. So one of the problems I was having with the old setup was that the rotor would clip its grid against this wall. So I wanted to create a bit of extra space between those two grids. And the way I did that, if we turn the jetpack on and go this away, was to pop a piston underneath. This piston is extended just a tiny bit, just enough that I can rotate this thing without running into any of the other blocks. And I can't believe I hadn't thought about that before. But having that tiny little offset, just like the tiny little offset I used in the elevator tutorial design, and which I will use to upgrade the elevator in this base, it just creates that bit of ease of moving the subgrids past one another. It's particularly important for small grids because things like the blast door blocks actually have collisions. I do have it on this one. Actually have collisions bigger than their apparent size. Particularly the blast door edge, because it reaches out to the full width of the block, which is unfortunate and means you can't really use blast doors to do these sorts of things. And that's why I resorted to having a rotor on a piston on a rotor attached to the large grid base. But it works, and I am very happy with this result. So let's get back and jump back in time to what I was doing after I'd finished making this thing. Yeah, I'm going to leave that for now. I'm not going to fiddle anymore because I think giving it a little bit of time, then an idea might come to me, / you guys might give me one. So I'm not going to touch it any further for now. Let's work on the rest of this kitchen. I was just thinking, if I had small grid glass, I would totally make Bae Marie's and put little glass coverings like sneeze guards and things. And the reason I started thinking about that was I would put corner lights on the inside colored reddish just to look like the heating bays, but I'm not sure I can pull that off. I might try and see what I can do with using the text panels the way I did on the tram, but I'm just not sure that it will work. It is tempting though. Go with the grid look and then put some red lights, but yeah, I don't think it'll work. I think I'd definitely need small grid glass to be able to pull that look off properly. Still could be fun if we do eventually get it at some point. There we go. So I might have gone a little bit overboard with the small grid in here, but I kind of felt funny having this service area so open to the kitchen, and I also like the idea of having these heating lamps above the, I think it's called the pass, so that the kitchen staff can pass things through to the service guys who can pop it on the counter for whoever's ordered it, or if we've got wait staff, I suppose they could take it out and actually take it to the people out in the cafeteria area. One of the things to keep in mind with small grid, if you're going to cover the ceiling, is that interior lights, they have a decent radius. They go out to 10 meters, but the corner lights, they only go to 4. So you want to be able to use interior lights if you're going to have them on a ceiling this high. Otherwise, the light isn't going to reach the floor, which is obviously not ideal. Now, I think I can get away with, yep, I can pop a corner light in there, which is good. There we go. I would say that is a much, much better kitchen than what we had before. It certainly looks the part better with the rest of the area out here. Now I do, unfortunately, need to hide up here a little bit better than what I currently have. I think this might do enough. There we go. I also dropped the counter height a bit. The reason I did that is I didn't want the small block edges showing. I wanted it to be nice and smooth, so I used the half slab the other way round, and with the slopes, it means we get a nice, perfectly smooth counter. I think that kind of works. From out here, I feel like it looks mostly the part. Next thing to do is the ceiling in here. And I'm somewhat limited with how I approach it, because I've got this bit... Oh, actually, I know exactly how I'm going to do it. I feel like I need to keep the ceiling down at the just 2 blocks height, but what I could do is put some slopes in on these pillars. There, and then do it on the back wall as well. And that should give me enough detail that it doesn't look completely bland. I'm pretty happy with this. I'm not super keen on the color though. The fact that everything's in white makes it look really, really dull. What color did I do the chairs out the front? I think I did the... Was it blue? Yeah, maybe I'll try that blue. Let's see if we can grab that, because I feel like that might be the better available option. I think it could even be this blue. Oh, pretty similar to it. Let's go paint them all blue and see if it works a bit nicer. Because wow, there is just far too much blandness going on in here. Space Invaders in blue? Yeah. I had to grind away most of this stuff because I changed the floor from being plain armor to being interior wall blocks because I preferred that. Do you paint? Oh, you do. Don't know if I wanted to, but you do. How does that look? I think it might be a bit too much with the couch and with this thing. Maybe it in grey. Yeah. Let me know what colours you guys think the couch should be. Because I feel like it's a bit too blue. I don't mind the seats, but wow, the couch just really jumps out at you. But otherwise, I'm very happy with that. That is one mess hall mostly done. Thank you very much for the suggestions, because making this an open kitchen like that is, or making this a closed kitchen like that, I should say, is a much better thing. And making this doorway open looks heaps better from the corridor. It just feels more like a space that people would want to actually be in, which I suppose is what we should be designing. Now, medical room. That's the next thing. Probably get some light on. We've got our kind of ward space here. So maybe a scanner room down in the back there would work. What does the back of the survival kit look like? Ooh. It's got some nice detail we could use too. What about the top? I haven't really looked at these blocks in terms of decoration. That could very much work in an industrial setting. You use the back or the top down in the refinery room and you'd get, because you've got the little gauges and things, it'll look awesome. You just have to hide the fact that it's got the big survival kit thing on it, and as long as you got that against a wall, this would fit in every industrial setting. That's really handy. Definitely something to keep in mind. Not sure how I'm going to include that in here though. Maybe a pair of them there? And then we could put a bit of a wall up. Something half block. Actually, half block the other way, maybe. Half block across here. So then we've got our little medical ward and treatment room. We can put one of the offset into industrial doors in there. That'll give us our closed ward. I like that. And then we can have our scanner room through here. Now our scanner room. What to do, what to do, what to do. I wonder if there's a block we could... Yes! What if we... I wonder if the ladder would work as a kind of a scanning thing. But the other option I had in mind... Hang on. Let's come out here because I think I've got enough room to play with this. We grab a ladder and we grab a bed. So the trouble I have with the bed is I would want to have it kind of floating if I was going to have stuff spinning around it. But I'm not sure how well that'd look attached to a kind of a rotor, because I'd want to hang it out there. But if I needed to, I could always have it supported on a ladder. But what if I did just the ladders back to back? How ridiculous will that look? Oh, I need small grid. Small steel tubes. Off to the kitchen I go. Should probably use the door that I made. I do get upset with Capac for not doing the same thing, so let's use it. Boop. Oh, I'm stuck. How ridiculous would this look as a scanner table? Very. That totally doesn't work. But it could work as the support for a scanner table. What else do we have that we grip onto? I wonder if any of these weights benches you can actually get on. And how they look. Can you sit on this? No. I think it's just decorative. Nerds. What others? We've got these bunk beds, but I'd really like one of those beds, but without the bunk bit, because that would almost work. Oh, I'm so tempted to make a seated one, because I can make the passenger seat on small grid. I don't know that these beds are available small grid. Well, they are. So I could do the bed. And if the bed doesn't look quite right, I could always put a seat down. So if I'm going to use the bed, let's have a bit of a play around with what we could actually put with it to make it look like a scanning table, because the way it ends up like this, it looks very much properly bed-like. The sort of thing you'd see in a room, not in a scanner. That didn't work. So let's play around a little bit with what we've got to see how we could make it work. Oh, actually, better idea. Let's make a bit of a scanner room and let's put this bed on small grid, because with small grid I think we'll have more options available to us for incorporating it and making it look like a scanning table. My idea will be to have something that retracts over or kind of pushes over the bed and then starts spinning up and kind of spins in multiple ways and hopefully looks kind of cool as it rotates around the bed. And then the bed can retract and then the patient can be moved off. But I really want this to be over the top, full-on sci-fi trope style scanner. Basically, what I'm imagining is the internals of a CT scanner, but without any covering. Something moving at incredibly high speeds that would be deadly if it wasn't covered. So I think 3 blocks should be wide enough for what I want to do, and if it isn't, we can always broaden it, but planning for something bigger than that is probably going to be a mistake, as I will almost certainly get way too carried away, which probably comes as no surprise to anybody at all. While I was building this bit of a room, I was starting to think about how I would actually approach building this scanner. The first part is getting a bed onto here in a way that I can manipulate it and push it into the scanner or bring the scanner over it. And I think I kind of want to do a bit of both. So the bed's going to need to be mounted on some pistons, which is going to make it interesting, because I also need to keep enough clearance between the bed and its piston mountings to have something be able to spin around it. So if we start with, say, let's try and keep this relatively compact. I also want some good style going on in this. Considering this is a 100% decorative build, I can't really go, that'll be good enough. I'll just leave it like that. No, that is the wrong block. That's what I want. If I take a piston and place it like that, we'll have the back edge, but I can cover that quite easily, so that's fine. And I think moving it 2 meters, so the full extension of the piston should be far enough. This may be pushing the bed a bit too high. I may need to sink that rotor into the floor, actually. There are a lot of spaces and distances involved here that I've not really worked with all that much, so getting a feel for how much room I need to leave is a bit difficult. So yeah, I'm definitely going to need to sink this rotor into the floor, because I want that bed to be at about ground height. Alright, let's do that, and then we'll catch up to where we are. So there we go, we can lie on this bed, and that looks as close as we're going to get. It's not perfect, but it'll do. So can we, using armor plate, manage to make this bed feel more like a scanning table? Something that feels a bit better suited to what we're using it for. Maybe if we... well, that could possibly work. Since apparently we can attach stuff to nothing, we might be able to easily do this. Put a little brace across it. See how that looks. To better incorporate it with the rest of what we've built around here. Basically, I'm trying to cover up those drawers and make this thing look a little more medical. Am I stuck? I feel somewhat stuck. This is a problem. Oh no, I got out. Oh man, that was potentially going to be my first death. If I got stuck. So I've had no way to get out without respawning. The more I add, the more ridiculous this is starting to look, I think. You know what? I think that'll do for now. Let's work on the rotation mechanism thing. And also, let's see if this piston goes out far enough, or if I'm going to have to do something clever and not clever to make it so I don't have to rebuild this thing. Can I get at that? Yes. Stuck. Stop being stuck. Oh yeah, that should be far enough. Well, it looks like I've got a little bit of room underneath and on all sides to be able to spin stuff around it. Yeah, One of the nice things about having the bed moving in and out of the scanner is that I can just build a scanner that works around the bed. Although, maybe I will start it off with a piston anyway, just so I've got a bit of extra play. Because it would be kind of cool to have the bed and the scanner move together and then separate. Okay, so, scanner array. It needs to spin, and I would really like to have each element spin independently. It also needs to come down a whole bunch. Ooh. Or does it? What happens if I move this up? Yes! It doesn't! I can move the bed up and across. Perfect. Alright, that makes life easier. So if I want each part to rotate independently, I'm going to have a small part down at the head end now, then a large part and a larger part. Maybe if I make... Yeah, that's what I'll do. What I'll do is I'll place a rotor on there. If I plan to have, say, to not go too overboard, just have two independently rotating parts. So my idea would be we have the smaller part rotate, have a bar that goes around the foot end and the head, and then the larger part will just have a single bit that rotates around the middle. The reason I wanted to have two independently rotating pieces is that I would really like to have this as have the two pieces counter rotate. So the reason I've started with the up down first is that I've looked at this bed and I think that is the broadest aspect of it. So we've got 1 block, 2 blocks, 3 blocks, 4 blocks, 5 blocks, and it's uneven. It's not going to be perfectly centered to keep the bed centered. So I need to make sure that both of these sides are going to be able to spin around the whole bed. And if we get it around the widest bit, it should just work. And now I need to make something that looks like a circle with a diameter of just under 7 blocks. I suppose it doesn't have to be perfectly circular, it just has to be round. Might go with something relatively simple so that I can keep using the half slabs. I want to use the half slabs for the internal one because I don't have much room left, and I'd really like to not have to expand the room massively beyond what it already is. So it's pretty dang huge. How does that look? Yeah, it doesn't... That's the nice thing about this. It doesn't have to be circular. It can just look... As long as it's rounded, it'll be interesting because we'll be able to see that it's spinning because of the varied shapes on it. So I'm actually, in this situation, quite happy with it being a bit funny on the corners. Just want to make it curved to a reasonable extent. Okay, so that's the internal scanner ring, at least the armor of it. I'm going to do some funky lighting with it, but that's the armor functional. Now, the outer ring. I've started by extending down below to give us enough clearance between the two so that when they're counter-rotating they won't collide. And then, how am I going to do the curve this time? I want to do it slightly differently, but it may end up looking almost identical in the end, I suspect. I wonder if I can get away with this. One of the reasons I didn't want to do the slopes on these curves any broader than they are is I wanted a place on them to actually be able to fit lights. So I need to have the attachment points that I've got around these. So I've got 3 attachment points there and 3 here, but none on these curves. And so I want to try and keep enough of those points that I can put lights on for this part as well. But I feel like a curve such as this might look a bit nicer on this one. This does slightly worry me that this is kind of square, so there's going to be a point where it's going to hit these walls. So I feel like I may need to give them an inward bow. Probably something like this. Even this would probably do well enough. Plus it's detail on the wall, so that's not a bad thing. That is not what I wanted to put there. That's 2 kind of circular-ish shapes, well, rounded squares. Let's get them counter-rotating. So our rotors, let's just chuck our rotor lock on so I don't go crazy just yet. Our rotors have a maximum velocity of 60 RPM. That means I could have the first one rotating at, let's just go 15. And then if I want to have the other one going the other way at the same speed, I can pop it up to 30. So if we go 30 there, and then we take our rotor lock off here, and then get the heck out of the way, we should... Oops. I'm a dope. Spun this the wrong way. I want this one going in negative 15. There we go. That's what I was after. Proper sci-fi tropes going on here. So if we have one spinning 15, if we have the first rotor spinning 15 one way, and then spin the other one at 30 the opposite way, it'll counteract the 15 and then they'll both be spinning at the same speeds, just in opposite directions. I could go twice as fast as this, but I think that's probably fast enough. Yeah. Now all we need is some cool lighting. And let's have a look at what this looks like from the bed. Oh, that's cool. That's really cool. I'm quite happy with this. This was a cool idea. Thank you for the suggestion on this one. I'm quite... As can be told by how much effort I've put into this, it's clearly something I was very keen to do. Now, I'm going to need to turn these rotors off so that I can actually place some lights on. So I'm still not finished with the medical room, but oh yes, I am quite happy with this scanner. We walk through here, I've got some controls set up, and I've actually got these set up to work properly. So, what I've done is I've created a group with all of the lights that are on the scanner rotator parts, and I've made a timer block that turns the rotors on and takes the rotor lock off, and does the opposite when I click it the other way. The idea of that is, let's show what it does. So I've got the control here for reversing the piston and getting it into getting the bed into the scanner. Turns out I do need a railing there. Not really sure what I'm doing with the railing just yet. I'm still thinking about how to best do that. But if we trigger this, turns on, all the lights go around, and if we look at this from the perspective of the bed, it looks pretty cool. Everything's spinning around. The lights dancing around you as well. I quite like it. Then, when we turn off, it kind of spins down slowly. So turn off, retract bed. I could probably actually have that all set up on the same thing, but I will have to set up a timer because I would want the bed to extend into it before any of this turns on. But I think that's pretty cool, the way it slows down like that. It will eventually stop. Oddly enough, I couldn't figure out a way to make the rotor lock snap on. It always wanted to slow down gradually, and if I didn't turn the rotors off, it didn't really want to stop. It kept spinning for quite some time. This was the quickest way to slow it down. And I didn't want to use increase-decrease rotation speed because I wanted this to be way up there at 15 RPM. So this seemed to be the best solution for the moment. Maybe I'll come up with a better one later. But I also need to lower that thing down, don't I? So the bed can come down to the right height. Still more to do, but... stuck in that hole. Really got to deal with that hole. But I'm pretty happy with this. Bed goes in. Scanner goes on. Yeah. Ridiculous sci-fi scanner. Love it. Absolutely love it. So next time I need to finish off this medical room, and I'll probably do that all fairly quickly since really all I need to do is the roof and a little bit of decoration in here. I'm fairly happy with most of it. Then we get to start on some apartments because I need some places for people to sleep. I've got eating. I've got, well, bathrooms in there, but not really showers. I've got a medical facility for injured workers. Now we just need control room and sleeping quarters. So there's all that, and plenty more to come, and I We'll see you then.